Thank God you're here, because today we're going to talk to you about all the things that Danes do and say that foreigners think are rude, annoying, or maybe just a little bit uncomfortable. But don't worry, we're going to explain to you how to avoid these culture clashes while living in Denmark. And before we get started, we wanted to cover a few basic points that are going to help all of these make more sense to you. The first one is that intent always matters. Now, if Danes wanted you to feel uncomfortable, annoyed, or insulted, they would be able to do that. But a lot of things are going to come off as a joke or something that's maybe a little bit at your expense, and you need to have some thick skin if you're going to associate and live amongst the Danes. So in most situations, if you hear something that sounds funny to you, stop and think, what was the intention? 99% of the time, I think you're going to find that it wasn't to be rude or insulting. And it's okay to ask if you're in doubt. In Denmark, being direct is okay. So really, just go ahead and straight up ask somebody if you think what they said to you was meant to be a slight. It probably wasn't, and then you'll both know.
And we'll talk more about that famous Danish Directness later, but the second point we want to make is to realize that even though Danes speak really good English, it's still their second language. This means that certain things might get lost in translation because the exact translation from Danish to English or English to Danish isn't perfect. So because of that, you may be speaking the same language, but you're hearing and saying different things. Another important thing to note is that English has almost 3 times the number of words that Danish does. This alone makes direct translation really tricky. Further, Danish uses little helping words like lige and bear to help soften up different statements. And these things don't directly translate into English, also making direct translation super tricky.
And lastly, our attorneys advised us to provide the following disclosure.
The following video is intended for fun-loving audiences only. It includes broad statements, generalizations, and stereotypes. Its purpose is to entertain and by no means offend viewers. The video is based on 2 people's experiences in 1 Danish city, so individual results may vary. Eric and Mike are not responsible for road-related accidents or trotting malpractice. If strong emotions lasting longer than 3 minutes result from watching this video, please consult your physician and avoid the comments section.
And speaking of rude things, we actually forgot to introduce ourselves. So if you're new to our channel, my name is Derek.
And I'm Mike.
And we're a couple from America who moved to Denmark in 2017. On our channel, you'll find all kinds of videos about what it's like to live in Denmark, and we enjoy sharing our experience of living abroad and traveling abroad with you. Now, we decided to make this video because of one of our most popular videos on our channel, 9 Reasons That Danes Don't Like You. That was a fun video to make where we explored all the reasons why sometimes foreigners don't come off too well to Danes. And a lot of people in the comments suggested that we make the opposite kind of video. A video where we can explore ways that Danes sometimes come off the wrong way to foreigners living in Denmark. So let's check out one of our first examples now.
Oh, are you visiting?
No, actually, I live here.
Oh, what are you doing in Denmark? So our first example is Hvad, laver, Denmark. What are you doing in Denmark? Sounds so innocent, right? Well, when Danes say it in that flat, almost monotonic way, it sounds almost accusatory, like they caught you somewhere you aren't supposed to be and say, what are you doing in Denmark?
Exactly, and you'll hear this a lot. We hear it from new neighbors that we meet. We hear it from even people that you kind of start talking to at a party. It's totally normal though. It's very innocent and it's not meant to be insulting. It's more meant as a curiosity. So somebody asking you what you're doing in Denmark is almost saying it in a way to kind of take a slight at Denmark. Like, why would you choose to come here? It's such a small country, not a lot of people know about it. Now, it's a little bit of Danes being humble, but it's not at all meant as an insult.
Now we have to say there is a little twinge of questioning on this because Danes have a reputation of being a little wary of foreigners, but if Danes want to make you feel unwelcome, they'll make you feel unwelcome. They simply want to know what you're doing here and want to understand your reason for joining their little country.
Wow, the weather's been really nice lately.
Yeah, but it's going to rain the rest of the week.
Well, I'm really excited for the Christmas markets.
Yeah, but they're so much better in Germany.
Well, I like your shirt.
Oh, this? I've had it for years.
So yeah, I know what you're thinking. That example was a bit cringe. It's something that's a little bit annoying about Danish culture, but once you understand where Danes are coming from, you won't necessarily look at this as something that Danes do to be rude or unfriendly. It's not even annoying when it comes down to it. You see, Danish culture is more about finding the simple pleasure and simple joy in something. It should be understated, and even if you are celebrating how nice something is, you don't want to go over the top in praising it. It's not really a culture for a ton of affirmation, and Americans especially are super over the top with how much they praise things. Oh my God, that was the best ever. I just love it. I love it. Not really part of Danish culture here. It's not wrong if you say that. It's just not going to be taken in the right way. And just because somebody kind of brings your compliments back down to earth doesn't mean that they don't appreciate it. It just means that you maybe went a little bit too far in how much you affirmed what they did.
Yeah, and the example that we had here, we actually stole that from a conversation we had at a dinner party a couple of years ago, where we played a little trick on our Danish friends to see if they'd actually respond in this way. And so we conspired with one of our American friends, asked these questions with a little bit over the top, and they responded just as we expected in this way. So sorry guys for tricking you a little bit, but it made for a great example 2 years later.
Now, again, don't take this too personally, and just to tie a bow on this conversation, make sure that you're not being too superficial with Danes, because that's a real way to turn off Danish friends. Again, they're not downplaying things that you say or things that you notice to make you feel bad. They're just trying to keep everything not too high and not too low, kind of like Danish geography. Hey, you want to go see the new Marvel movie this weekend?
No, I do not like action movies. Now that example might seem ridiculous, but it's a really close to home example of Danish directness. To Danes, there's no reason to beat around the bush. And for Americans and Brits, that's a little tough because we like to use 100 words when Danes figure that 2 or 3 will suffice.
Yeah, so sometimes this directness comes off as Danes saying something rude to foreigners, but it's really not. The directness is actually meant as a sign of respect, or they think that they're trying to be helpful by just cutting to the chase and saying what they mean. It'll also come off sometimes as unsolicited advice. I remember one time we were coming home into our new apartment as we were moving, and we had a carload of things from IKEA. And our neighbor happened to be coming in at the same time and told us, you know, you shouldn't park on the sidewalk. Well, yeah, we know that, but everybody does it. And maybe she was just trying to be helpful because she knew that we weren't from Denmark, but that's kind of something we didn't ask for help with. She just decided to be direct and let us know. Again, think about the intention. It wasn't to be rude. It wasn't intended to be harmful, hurtful, or annoying, although, well, maybe it was a little bit the last one. But again, it's still pretty innocent.
So as you can see, whether it's a funny little joke or being turned down for a movie or a little unsolicited advice about parking rules, you can see Danish directness is actually a virtue, even if it feels a little bit annoying sometimes. It's a sign of respect. It's respect for your time, and it's respect for your intelligence that you're deserving of hearing the truth.
I got our drinks.
Hocus pocus, Derek and focus.
Sorry, I'll go get you a new one.
And shots.
Yes, Hvad. Now, I'm sure that all of the Danish friends watching are probably going to have a good laugh at my expense when they hear me pronounce that word, which is a great example for what it actually means. See, it's the idea that in Danish culture, it's perfectly normal to laugh at your friends, especially when they mess something up. And hopefully you're not having too big of a laugh. I am working on the pronunciation, but it's perfectly normal to laugh at somebody if you're friends with them, because again, it's all about intent. Nobody means to hurt your feelings, but what they do expect you to do is kind of make up for your goofy mistake and go buy a round of shots to make up for the beers that you spilled.
Kvajebajer isn't limited just to making mistakes in the bar. It can also be something that you see at work or with your friends socially. For example, at work, if you mess something up, the greatest way to own up for it is to bring in kvajebajer, which is a mistake cake, to make sure that you share with all of your colleagues that you did something wrong, but we can have a good laugh at it now. The whole point in Danish culture with this, again, is intent matters, and the idea here is also that you're part of the team, that they wouldn't make fun of you if they thought you couldn't handle it. And this can be tough for people coming from more sensitive cultures or cultures where maybe you don't point out flaws in such a direct and dramatic way.
It's like my mom used to always tell me, Derek, they're laughing with you, not laughing at you.
And we've heard from our friends that this is absolutely true. They wouldn't be doing this to you if they didn't think that you could handle it. Again, intent matters, and it's a sign of respect. We all make mistakes.
And again, the takeaway here is to just keep in mind that people aren't trying to be mean to you. In Danish culture, it's just the idea that everybody makes mistakes, and the best thing to do is have a laugh together, own up for it, and then you can move past it. And when in doubt, cake and shots always help. So what did you think of the presentation I just gave?
I have some doubts if we can finish the project on time. Should we have a meeting about this? Oh, I have doubts. This is one that takes me back to when we first came over to Denmark, because this is one of the first things I experienced at work, and it really frustrated me at the beginning. I have to be honest, when I first came over here, I felt like my job was 90% just bridging the gap between American English and Danish English. And this is a great example where intent matters, but also direct translation really goes the wrong way. See, to an American ear, when I hear I have doubts about something, it means that not only are you saying that you aren't sure about it, but you think the entire premise is stupid. To Danish ears, what they're trying to say is, this is probably a good idea, but I'm not sure if I totally understand what's happening, or can you clarify this a little bit more? Again, Dane's trying to say in 2 words what Americans or Brits would say in 100.
Yeah, and Americans also have a weird habit of overanalyzing everything. So receiving a short email that just says, I have some doubts about this, can we talk later, is going to kind of have your head spinning if you don't understand the way that Danish culture uses this language. Maybe another way to explain how this sounds a little bit different to American ears is if I were to say, I can go slam dunk a basketball, no problem. You might say, I doubt it. I think that's where the translation comes across a little bit different, because to me, I hear someone say I have doubts, and I think that they have doubts in me. I personalize it. I make it seem like they have doubts about my work, when really what they're trying to say is something's unclear, and I, the person typing the email or the person speaking these words, is basically asking for help and saying, I need you to explain this to me. It's very different than the way it sounds to American ears.
So this is another example where the meaning is lost in the direct translation, and there's a little bit of cultural difference in here as well. Americans and Brits, we like to be flowery and kind of talk around what we're trying to say. Danes are the exact opposite, direct to the point and saying what needs to be said. So if you're foreign and you're experiencing this, just realize on who's saying this and what their intent is, because the meaning may have gotten lost in such a direct way. And also, remember, you need to have a little bit of a thicker skin if you're going to work with the Danes.
Ja, selvfølgelig.
So this one is actually hilarious to me, and I still crack up every time it happens on the street, but it's very frequent that you'll be walking behind a group of Danish kids, teenagers, even preteens, and you'll hear a string of Danish, and even if you're a foreigner, you may not understand it, but then all of a sudden you hear a string of words that you do understand, and they are English curse words. That's right, all of a sudden it's Danish, 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 or. And the reason why you hear this isn't necessarily because these Danish kids have no manners. It's more that they do have manners, because very often some of the first English words that they're gonna hear in, say, American or British pop songs or on television or movies is English curse words. And it's more acceptable for them to use these words than it would be for them to use Danish curse words. You see, they already have a set of words that are banned for them to use in their house. So to make up for it, they kind of use these English curse words that they're not as nasty and they don't have as heavy of a tone as American or English families would hear them.
Yeah, there's nothing funnier than getting onto the train and going somewhere and hearing a gaggle of kids coming in saying exactly like that. Right? When we first moved here, it's kind of the thing that you kind of just tune out Danish where you don't understand it, but then all of a sudden when a little comes in, you can't help but notice that and have a little bit of a chuckle. And then you see the grandma sitting next to you not even blanch when she hears it.
So it's basically the equivalent of an American or a British or anybody that's a native English speaker learning a Spanish curse word and calling their little brother or a friend that Spanish curse word instead of using the English equivalent because, well, maybe they can get away with it, and to their parents or anybody that would yell at them for it, it just sounds more acceptable. It's not as bad as saying the actual English curse word. So It's just switched, and that's what the Danish kids and even adults are doing when they use or instead of using a Danish curse word. You just have to get used to it.
Oh, so how long have you lived here for?
4 years.
Oh, how's your Danish coming? Ooh, how is your Danish coming along? Similar to Hvad, laver at the beginning that we talked about, this is one of those double-edged sword kind of questions that sounds a lot worse than it actually is. We covered this topic a little bit in our video, 9 Reasons Why Danes Don't Like You, and went into a little bit more depth on this. But essentially, this is the kind of thing that you're going to hear as soon as you admit to a Dane that you've lived here for more than 3 weeks. They're going to ask you, oh, how's your Danish coming along? And they're asking it 2 different ways. On one hand, they're actually curious. Oh, are you learning Danish? How is it going for you? Do you find it as hard as they say it is? And on the other hand, it's also, you lived here for 3 weeks, you're learning the language, right?
That's right, and usually a simple answer like "Jeg kan tale lidt dansk" is all you need to say, but your pronunciation will give away that maybe you haven't gotten too far in mastering the language. Again, all people want to know is that you're trying.
So here's another example of that famous Danish directness with a little bit of unsolicited advice and just a pinch of nagging on top of it. But again, it's not really rude if you're going to live in a foreign country to be asked if you're starting to learn the language of the country that you live in. Tillykke med fødselsdagen!
Well, tillykke med fødselsdag, because you're going to see the Danish flag everywhere on your birthday. In fact, you're also going to see it around on the streets, you're going to see it in the grocery store, you're going to see it at bars. I mean, it's everywhere. Danes love the flag. Now, as Americans, we're pretty used to this because Americans also revere their flag, and I think it looks pretty cool. For us, this wasn't too much of an adjustment. Now, the reason why we decided to put this in the video isn't because we don't love the Danish flag. Of course we do, and we think it's a really cool tradition and custom. We also love the American flag, but what we do know is that some places in the world and some of the people moving to Denmark from these places may come from areas where national flags have been used to divide citizens or divide culture. So not everywhere is a national flag seen as pride and fun and birthday like it is in Denmark.
So I can say when I first started working here and you suddenly saw people's desks plastered in flags, it kind of came a little bit across like it might be hazing, like trying to make fun of somebody who wasn't Danish, but then quickly learned and understood that's not the case at all. If anything, it's a sign of respect no matter where you come from, that if you have Danish flags on your desk, everyone's just happy it's your birthday and you're going to bring cake.
That's true. So the Danish flag isn't something that Danes share with you because they're trying to be rude or to haze you or make you feel uncomfortable. And if you do, you just need to know that in Denmark, that's not the case. It's a happy thing, it's a reason for celebration, and it's a symbol that is really cool that Danes actually share with you to encourage you to jump into their tradition. That's why we love it. But they're tacos, some things you can eat with your hands.
This is how we do it in Denmark. So we brought up cases over and over again where there's Danish directness telling you exactly how they feel. And this statement, "That's just how we do it in Denmark," is an example of one that's going to be designed to shut down a conversation. Now, like any other culture, there's certain things that nobody wants to hear about or nobody wants to hear criticisms about. Know that you've either approached or maybe crossed a line, and you really shouldn't go further with the line of conversation that you're going into.
Now this one I can say honestly took us a little bit of getting used to. And I think the reason why is because as Americans, we're very used to taking criticism and having people tell us exactly what they think of America, especially as we're traveling or even living in another country. For Danes, that can be a little bit more of a tricky conversation, and politics get brought up a lot in Denmark, so you're going to have a lot of conversations where somebody might need to tell you, like, back off. We're not going to talk about this right now. And this is basically what this statement is saying. Now, whether you think this is right, wrong, or indifferent, just know that if you do go a little too far with a Dane, they're going to tell you to back off. And You might think that's rude, you might be annoyed, but sometimes it's just best to walk away from a conversation if you know it's going left, or I guess any other direction that it shouldn't be going in.
And I think this is always tough for a foreigner anywhere that you live, because you want to be able to express opinions and thoughts about the place that you live in. But you're also a guest, which means that there's certain things that maybe you don't fully understand, or also certain things that it's a little bit uncomfortable for people to hear from. So this is one just be aware of. If you hear this one, know that in some ways it's a bit of a courtesy. It's also maybe a little bit of a stop sign, just to know that this is the point where you shouldn't go any further.
So again, you need to use your judgment and think about intent when things are brought up. So sometimes if somebody tells you, that's just how we do things in Denmark, they're just trying to tell you, get on board, add a little remoulade sauce to your meal. But sometimes if you're critiquing something about foreign policy or even domestic policy, something that's highly charged or political, you may need to back off a little bit, and that's okay. Thank you so much for watching our video. We hope that you enjoyed it and picked something up that can help you as you're living in Denmark. Now be sure to give it a thumbs up and drop a Danish flag in the comments to let us know if we did a good job or not. If you have some doubts, definitely leave us some very direct feedback in the comments below.
And if we made any mistakes, that means we owe you a Hvad beer. We're going to close out today with a anarchist Montueka lager from Theodor Schatz's brewery in Odense. It's apparently a rather hoppy lager. We'll see how we like it. Skål.
Skål. Good. Hi.